Is it possible that after years of slop content that the gaming industry is finally learning its lesson and is ready to return to its roots and give gamers what they actually want? After misses like Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, Dragon Age the Veilguard creative director says BioWare decided to look at what's worked in the past for inspiration. With a catalog comprising the original Mass Effect trilogy, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and the first two Baldur's Gate games, there's certainly a lot of successful history to draw upon, so it's nice to see BioWare back on form. Instead of waging war against gamers by delisting these classic titles, these companies need to look back and see what brought them the level of success that they've enjoyed in the first place. Hello fellow travelers and welcome to the Hard Light Network. So guys, today we are talking about what could possibly be the best news to hit the gaming industry for the next generation. Is it possible that after years of slop content that the gaming industry is finally learning its lesson and is ready to return to its roots and give gamers what they actually want? Does a single company have what it takes to drag the entire industry out of the muck and mire and bring us into a new generation of gaming renaissance? Of course, it remains to be seen if the games industry as a whole is awakening from this fever dream of superficial politics and cheap recycled gameplay gimmicks. But the article that we have for you today, guys, is certainly full of hope, and I couldn't be happier with the developer that's decided to make a change in the industry. But before we get into our reading today, guys, I want to remind you to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I've got coming up for you in the future, and also take to the comment section down below with your take on today's topic. Your support goes a long way to helping this channel grow within the algorithm and make sure that other gamers don't miss out on the latest gaming news. With that being said, if you wanted to go the extra mile, there is a super thanks option down below. But without any further ado, let's get into this article. And today's reading comes to us from our friends yet again over at Games Radar and is entitled, After Misses Like Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, Dragon Age the Veilguard creative director says BioWare decided to look at what's worked in the past for inspiration. And it begins as follows. BioWare has only released 4 new games in the last 10 years, and 2 of them didn't do very well, so it drew upon its old successes for Dragon Age the Veilguard. Quote, I think for us, where we've been, the last 2 projects we've released, Andromeda and Anthem, we wanted to make sure that this one landed in a way that was satisfying, that told a good, cohesive story, could tell a good, coherent story. Creative director John Epler tells Games Radar Plus. Mass Effect Andromeda launched to mixed reviews from critics. Not a disaster, but definitely not the fresh start this series needed, is what we wrote for our review of the sci-fi sequel. Anthem fared a lot worse. This was BioWare's attempt at making a live service shooter quite far out of its wheelhouse. Empty, utterly frustrating, and genuinely makes me sad, we said in our review of the short-lived game. BioWare instead looked back at its back catalog of beloved games for the Veilguard. A lot of what that came down to is, okay, let's look at what's worked in the past, Epler says. Let's look at what we've done before. Not copy from it, but draw inspiration. The strategy appears to have worked wonders. We wrote that the Veilguard is, quote, a true return to RPG form for BioWare in our review of the latest Dragon Age installment. After waiting 10 years for it, fans seem to love it too, as it's currently sitting on mostly positive reviews on Steam. With a catalog comprising the original Mass Effect trilogy, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and the first 2 Baldur's Gate games, there's certainly a lot of successful history to draw upon, so it's nice to see BioWare back on form. And that's going to do it for this article, guys, but honestly, we are far from done because I wanted to hone in on a few things. Despite the glazed job that this article has done for the Veilguard, I have some pushback that I wanted to cover. But all hope is not lost, because what we're actually seeing from this article is a slight glint in the darkness, and it isn't Dragon Age the Veilguard. First, I wanted to correct the record on how the game is, quote, sitting on Steam at mostly positive reviews. While that is the case, mostly positive only means 70%, and if you look at the past 30 days, it's sitting at a mixed review with only 64% of reviews reviews being positive. There is a significant subsection of this game's player base that is not satisfied with it as an installment of the Dragon Age franchise. And it's a bit more than disingenuous that this article intentionally looks past them in order to paint Dragon Age the Veilguard in a more positive light. There is a ton that can be said for the criticism surrounding this IP, but I wanted to focus on this single review from Elveni that I think sums up the discussion pretty well. And of course, with 91.8 hours on record at time of the review, Elveni does not recommend this game, stating, "One thing up front, not liking the game has nothing to do with it being too woke. Dragon Age the Veilguard took everything that made the Dragon Age series so interesting and fascinating: the conflict, the moral grayness, the choices that have consequences, the romances, the interactions with companions, and well, deleted them. Yes, you have companions, and there are interactions with them, but you can never interact with them by yourself. No going to talk to someone like in Dragon Age Inquisition. The romances are minimal, there's extremely little content. The player character is a hand for hire without any personal stakes in what is happening. There is no real role-playing aspect. You can be nice with a joke, or stern nice. You can never disagree with someone or tell them that they're wrong, and you have a companion from your faction that is always more important than you are for that faction. Your character doesn't really matter to the story. But most importantly, the issue has been filed down to absolute shallowness. It's pumped so full of flavor without substance, all edges have been smoothed over until there's nothing left of the conflict and friction, and anything that could be a tiny bit controversial, that it feels hollow. There are factions that are utterly useless and have zero content, and others that should have content are ignored. Lords of Fortune versus Dwarves? Seriously, Cal Chirac? Why wasn't that a faction? There are such interesting story bits and side quests and companion quests, but none have consequence, none have depth. Looking at Dwarven Magic, A Forgotten One, Rogue Canary, A Demon Possession, Political Upheaval in Tevinter, nothing from the old games matters. The more lore you know, the harder it is to play this game. They completely erase Thedas from the map in letters. Your character may or may not read. Finally, we see Tevinter, except we see nothing of Tevinter, or even hints of what we know of the land. No slavery, no blood magic, except for the faceless bad Venatori, of course. Finally, we see the Crows, except we see nothing of what Zevran fought against and tried to dismantle. Instead, we have a benevolent mafia. Finally, we see the Dalish, which are actually adept at handling their story, and then they kick around with conversation where they speculate that maybe humans were right to treat them like they did. There's more, but this is long already. The game is visually beautiful, and the lore we get of Solus and Mythal, etc. is awesome. The fights are fun, if you don't mind that same enemies respawn every time you walk around a corner. But if you're looking for an RPG, Veilguard is not the game for you. If you're looking to deepen your experience of Dragon Age, Veilguard is not the game for you. I really wanted to love this game. Instead, I'm so massively annoyed and disappointed by it, I won't be replaying it. And we can see that this reception was well received, with almost 3,000 people receiving it positively and over 300 different awards given to this post. It's clear to see that this is a common sentiment, and none of the positive reviews on record have anywhere near close to that sort of reaction from the community. But look, I know some of you guys want me to cover it, and we'll definitely do it. The quote-unquote woke elements of this story cannot be ignored. The vast majority of the memes and the video clips have been either talking about it or making fun of it in one way or another. To tell you the truth, I think it speaks volumes of the game's substance or lack thereof that so much of the online discussion surrounding it has been about real-world politics. The first and last opinion that I will give on this subject in terms of this title is that it seems obvious to me that the game was used as nothing more than a political proxy to shoehorn in discussions about this social issue. You're free to take it or leave it, but my honest opinion about the inclusion of this topic in particular is that it is pure tokenism aimed more at provoking reaction than actually creating a thoughtful dialogue about this subject. I think the subject matter was handled exceptionally poorly from a narrative perspective, and it seems very predatory on both the positive and negative reactions from each side of the fanbase. At the end of the day, it comes across as nothing more than rage bait, as both sides of the argument knew exactly how the other was going to respond. But with all of that aside, I wanted to end this video on the subject that I brought up at the beginning. Despite the failures of this title and the last few titles from BioWare, is there hope that this company in particular can resurrect gaming? Is it possible that developers can make a course correction and give us back what we actually want from gaming? And despite the bad faith glazed job that companies have been giving this game, as well as the poor reception of the last few BioWare titles, I genuinely believe it can, if they take it to heart and they actually are looking back at the success of their older titles. I do believe that eventually that can translate into success. I wholeheartedly believe that if they look long and hard enough at their old catalog of games, they will see what actually made those games great in the first place. Just like the article said, the creator of the original Mass Effect trilogy and the Knights of the Old Republic series, and even classics like Jade Empire, cannot remain in this state if they are seriously garnering inspiration from those classic titles. More than anything, I do believe that that is the solution to the woes that we're facing in the gaming industry in modern times. Instead of waging war against gamers by delisting these classic titles, these companies need to look back and see what brought them the level of success that they've enjoyed in the first place. They didn't get there by thoughtlessly rehashing old content, and they certainly didn't get there by provoking cheap and disingenuous political discussions. If these companies are willing to go back to empowering player choice, breathing life into these worlds that they've created, and stop relying on nostalgia and the IPs of the already successful products that they've made, then they can recover. Not only can gaming go back to what it was, but we can have a brand new renaissance in the entire gaming industry. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched up to this point, and if you can, please do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content that we've got coming up for you, and also hit the comment section down below to let me know what you think about this subject. What were your actual opinions on Dragon Age the Veilguard? Did you ever play any of BioWare's older titles, and what do you think about where they are now versus where they have been in the past? Do you believe that it's possible for the gaming industry to recover at all? Regardless, I feel like we've got a long way to go, but there's going to be plenty of content to keep us busy while we wait. In the meantime, I gotta get back to it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.